Sean Gibson, GamingIllustrated.com, here from E3 2013. To my left is Calvin Martinez.
Hey there.
And then I have TV's Ben Sheen.
What's up?
And also Ryan Bloom.
How's it going?
Don't you mean the Ryan Bloom?
I do mean the Ryan Bloom. So we're here. It's day one of E3. We're very excited. We have a jam-packed schedule. I start off at the Nintendo booth, then head over for Bethesda, and I think EA might be later today. Actually, it's Activision, then Bethesda for me. But let's recap yesterday. You two guys were at the press conferences. You started out at Microsoft. First impressions, obviously, it's going to change with the fact of Sony's bombshell later in the evening. But at the time, first, give me your impressions overall of how that Xbox One press conference went down.
The Xbox One conference was actually quite impressive. I went into it with low expectations, and they blew it away with all the games that they showed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I would want, and they showed some good exclusives, which I didn't expect. Actually, more exclusives than felt than Sony, so good for them. And no talk of TV.
Ryan, your impressions?
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go with that, Ben. That there was no TV talk at all. It was all about the games, so that was really exciting. That's the one thing I took away from the Microsoft conference.
And from there, you guys headed over to EA. Obviously, there was a lot to do with Battlefield 4, as well as the EA Sports games, definitely their drive with the next-gen consoles. Ryan, your impressions of Battlefield 4, is it really going to step up their game? Obviously, it's not going to sell quite as much as Call of Duty, but it's always been converging in terms of sales. 64 players at the same time. It was pretty impressive on camera. How was it in person?
I think it was extremely impressive. I'm really excited to go. Like, it really seems like an open world environment. And when that building came down, it's like, wow, what you can do in multiplayer in Battlefield 4 is just amazing, it seems like.
EA Sports also, you're a big sports guy, I am as well. My impressions from being a watcher on the stream was that I wasn't seeing actual in-game play. I was seeing a lot of canned footage, so that really has me concerned because I don't know if you guys are aware, but when Xbox 360 and PS3 came out, the games from EA Sports were terrible at launch. I mean, the first generation was really bad, so I was hoping for a little bit of redemption, and I wasn't necessarily seeing that. I was seeing a lot of talk of in-game technology, but your impressions?
Well, I was kind of the same way because when the Xbox 360 and PS3 came out, they pretty much just ported the other games to it. And so they have a new engine. They're actually working on making a real next-gen title. But it seems like really disappointing to me that it doesn't seem to be next-gen. But it's still very early on, it seems like. And I really want to see the gameplay, and they're not showing that yet. So it was kind of disappointing.
Anything else? Any other major takeaways for you, Ben, on the EA press conference?
As brief as it was, Star Wars Battlefront, that's a big announcement.
It was about 6 seconds of footage, right?
It was like a little bit of a Hoth scene, but for me, it was Mirror's Edge announcement. I think that's what fans have been wanting from EA. It was a great original IP when it came out, and it shows that they're listening, not focusing just on franchises that they've had, but they want to do something with a very loved game and hopefully improve it.
All right, so then we'll switch over to Ubisoft. Calvin, you watched online through the whole thing and you reported it on our recap yesterday. What were the big takeaways for you from Ubisoft?
Well, I mean, there was obviously they showed some more of Watch Dogs, but they've showed Watch Dogs at pretty much, they showed it at Sony, they showed it everywhere, and it looks amazing. That actually looks like it's running really well. Unlike Assassin's Creed, which they also showed kind of new trailers and kind of they showed the gameplay footage at Sony, and it was really kind of, I mean, it crashed.
Yeah.
It had a lot of bugs, and after Assassin's Creed 3, you thought, hey, it's not going to crash on stage.
Yeah.
And it crashed on stage. They showed Rayman Legends, which looks really good. They showed their free-to-play loot game, which I don't know what that is. Like, it wasn't clear. Like, it got the humor across, but it wasn't really that interesting. They have Xbox One's TV interactive thing with Rabbids Interactive, or I don't remember the title.
Not too exciting for me, right?
No, unless you watch Nickelodeon and you want to interact on TV.
Yeah.
Do you, Sean?
No.
Then it's got nothing for you. But the biggest thing that they showed there was The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division. Got to have the Tom Clancy part because they paid for that license. Right. It looks really good. It's an open world RPG, third person. The gameplay looked really clean. It's a combination of in-game, like everyone working on playing from like the PS4 on the controllers, and then a person can go on a tablet and interact with that, doing like this kind of drone strike in there. It looked really clean. It looked really interesting, kind of like a combination of Fallout and Borderlands, and it looks really impressive.
There was a new IP, I believe it was called The Crew.
The Crew, yeah. They showed The Crew, which is kind of like Fast and Furious, except Activision actually made a good Fast and Furious game. That has the heist and stuff. It looks really interesting. The multiplayer is seamless. There's no hub, so all multiplayer can happen seamlessly as you're playing. And every mission is co-op, and you can play it together with people online. It looks really cool. We'll see what happens. The pre-render they showed was really clean, but the in-game stuff actually is not too bad. Like all these next-gen titles, what I'm really impressed by is that going from pre-rendered to in-game footage is pretty clean.
Overall grade for Ubisoft, very quickly?
I'd probably give it an A-. I mean, there are some issues, like, again, they didn't show a lot of new stuff. The Crew and the Division are the biggest things, but those are some pretty big things. The Division is just incredible.
All right, so to recap the evening, which was Sony, I think all of us agreed that that was where the biggest bombshells kind of came down, and we really were finally able to decide an early winner for the console war. For me, kind of blown away. It started very slow, and then the Twitter chatter just exploded once we started to see some of those games. Incredible job by Sony on their presentation. You two guys were there. Let's get some impressions. Ben, early impressions, Sony, it started out a little slow, but ended amazing.
Basically, at Sony, it started out early. You know, it was definitely a slow start, but, you know, from The Last of Us, all those great scores it's been giving, you know, the excitement was palpable. But when, you know, they started talking about TV, kind of enthusiasm died down, but then they picked up with Final Fantasy 15. Well,
Looked amazing.
it looked incredible. I mean, you know, you can't deny how great that looked. And then they dropped the bombshell of Kingdom Hearts 3. People have been looking at that forever. And, you know, from there, it just kind of, it was a waterfall of amazing announcements. You know, the price, the DRM situation. They hit Microsoft where it's been hurting them for the past couple weeks, and the crowd was cheering. It was an infectious enthusiasm throughout the entire conference at the end. And, you know, they walked away with that Destiny reveal, which was amazing because no one's seen that. Considering how Bungie has supported Microsoft over the years, Destiny at Sony, great.
Yeah, not so subtle jab at Microsoft with Bungie there presenting at the Sony conference. I'll ask Ryan then to come over and give us his impressions of the Sony conference. Really, what were the major bombshells that we should take away? Obviously, the price. They beat Microsoft on the price at a $399 price point as opposed to $499. But what else really stood out for you?
Well, they definitely went for the jugular to Microsoft. They did the used games things. They said, you know, it's going to play used games. They're going to be disc-based games. And so they definitely went for the jugular to take out Xbox One, and they really are. They're definitely, you can see the feedback, and the energy in the building was crazy. That's the one thing I took away from the Sony conference. You did not see that at any of the other conferences. The energy was crazy.
All right, well, we began here officially at E3, day one. I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys, and appreciate everyone tuning in on our YouTube channel, on Twitter, and of course our website visitors. Stay tuned. Gaming Illustrated will be publishing news stories throughout E3. We're going to have exclusive content, exclusive interviews. You're going to see recaps after every show, and obviously in the morning we'll be recapping. We've got a buddy story blooming here. Pun intended. But appreciate everyone tuning in. Stay tuned at GamingIllustrated.com.